bring awareness to the homeless and to collect items for them as well. We will be having poetry, singing. There will be a food and drink vendor there as well, and some gun conversation. I will be doing poetry as well as Shawnee and Christy and John Carr will be singing. If you're interested, please inbox me. I am giving away a free gift for the first 15 people. I am almost at that capacity, so if you want a free gift when you attend, inbox me as soon as possible. To send in your payment is only $10. This week I will be discussing mental health and PTSD. A lot of us have heard of PTSD, and it definitely affects a lot more people than you think. PTSD is one of the top three mental health illnesses in the United States. It affects about 9 million people each year. It's a little roughly 3%. It doesn't seem like a lot, but definitely it is one of the top three. And PTSD is a disorder that develops in people that experience trauma, something scary or dangerous that happens. Now, most of the time we connect PTSD with those that have been in the military, and I think that a lot of times a lot of light isn't shine on those that suffer from PTSD that have been in the military, because mental illness is not something that you can see, right? And so a lot of people that have been in the military come home and they suffer alone and they suffer in silence, and then a lot of things happen to them. I know from my experience, I've worked with some older gentlemen that have come back um, from the war, and they tend to a couple of them became alcoholics to deal with the things that they had seen over there fighting. So it's important that if you have been in the military and you do have PTSD, that you seek help as soon as possible, because it can cause a lot of repercussions. You may be agitated a lot of times. You may fight. You are in constant fear, and part of you always feels like you in battle, and so you may react on that around the people that you love and care about. And it's no one's fault, but I urge you to get help as soon as possible if you feel like you are suffering from those symptoms, and I'll share with you those symptoms momentarily. Anyone can suffer, just like I said, military people. Children can suffer as well. People that have been through trauma, such as sexual assault, abuse, an accident, a disaster, a terrorist attack, or any other serious events. And also people that may not have experienced those traumas, but those around them can also suffer from PTSD as well. Um, there are certain criteria to meet the PTSD, and in order to be medically diagnosed with PTSD, you have to fit these criteria. And so one of them is having a re-experience symptoms. One avoidance symptoms, two arousal and reactivity symptoms, and two cognitive and mood symptoms. And I'm about to explain to you what those mean. So, re experience symptoms is having flashbacks, reliving the trauma over and over again, including physical symptoms such as a racing heart and sweating, and that can resemble anxiety and panic attack as well, having bad dreams or frightening thoughts. An avoidance symptom is staying away from places and people that will trigger a trauma response. Also avoiding thoughts or feelings about the trauma. So you avoid talking about it, because if you talk about it, it brings up negative feelings and emotions. Arousal and reactivity symptom is being easily startled. You always feel like you're on the edge. You have difficulty sleeping, and you have angry outbursts. And then a cognitive and mood symptom is um, you can't really remember the whole event that happens, only bits and pieces. You have a lot of negative thoughts about yourself and the world, have a lot of distorted feelings, guilt and blame, and then you lose interest in your day-to-day activities. So those are the criteria that, in order to get medically diagnosed with PTSD, you have to fit that as well. Um, PTSD can happen at any age. Children that are suffering from PTSD, it looks a little different. They may start wetting the bed a lot. They may start to get more clingy than usual. They forget how to talk, and then they act scary during playtime. A lot of things can happen, especially in silence, and it can cause PTSD, especially, like I said, if you have been sexually assaulted, which is rape, and you never came to terms with it, you never told anybody, and you suffered in silence. That could be one. If you've been in an abusive relationship, that can trigger definitely a lot of emotions. So it's important to know where you stand with it, right? If you know that you are suffering and you have some of these symptoms, it's best to go get diagnosed. It's best to get help as soon as possible so that you can figure out a plan to live your life the best way moving forward. Um, some risk factors that can trigger PTSD is living through dangerous events again and trauma, getting hurt, seeing another person hurt, and or seeing a dead body. A lot of people in the military, they go over and they fight and they, you know, it's your life against someone else's, and unfortunately, sometimes you have to pull the trigger um, with towards someone, and you really don't want to, but again, it's your life versus theirs, so you live with that those memories and thoughts, and then you come back into regular society, and you don't know how to adjust, and so PTSD can be a result of that. Dealing with extra stress, having a history of mental illness and substance abuse. So a lot of times when you have PTSD, you can also have another mental disorder, such as depression, such as anxiety, and having all of these at once can definitely cause a lot of turmoil internally if you don't seek help as soon as possible. A lot of times we don't know that we have them. We just are reacting. We think it's normal, but if it's starting to take over your life where you don't know who you are, where you're not definitely enjoying your life each and every day, we have, our good days and bad days, but if it's taking over your life, right, you're scared to go outside, you're scared to avoid certain things. You definitely want to figure out what's going on with you and definitely go get help as soon as possible. Um, the best way to do that again is to seek therapy, to find support from your family and friends. A lot of times people may not understand what you're going through, right? If you never experienced mental health illness, and if someone else is suffering, you may think that they're just, reacting and that's how someone is. A lot of time people don't reveal that they carry a mental health disorder because of fear of shame as well. And especially with PTSD, um, it's a silent disorder, right? We don't want to talk about what we've gone through, especially if you've been sexually assaulted or been in an abusive relationship. It's definitely hard to come out and tell people about it because you definitely carry a lot of shame with that. You carry guilt. You blame yourself for especially with rape, a lot of people that have been raped blame themselves. They say it's their fault. Maybe they shouldn't have wore this, or maybe they shouldn't have been somewhere at a certain time. And so you fail to go seek help, and so you're dealing with all of this by yourself. And over time, carrying that much burden creates a lot more issues, and you cause a lot of damage to yourself and to those around you. Also, if you're in an abusive relationship, depending on the length, there's no time, but let's say you've been in an abusive relationship for 10 years, so you're dealing with all that on a day-to-day basis, and you're carrying that, and once you get out of that, a lot of times you feel like you're still in that, and so you definitely avoid other relationships, you avoid being in situations, and then if you saw this person again, it may trigger trauma response, and so that's why I keep saying I urge you to go get help because the longer that you carry this burden, the more heavy it gets for you, and then it takes the joy of living away. Right? A lot of people that suffer in silence, and when you don't get help, you're not doing justice for yourself. Right? You're basically keep continuously blaming yourself for things that happen. Like certain things are definitely out of our control, and the best way to go about it is to definitely not blame yourself. And I know that it's hard not to do, especially if you were in a situation, but it's important to know that this experience is over, and you have to find ways to continue to live forward. And I think that's the hardest part. A lot of us that deal with mental health, it's hard to see the future ahead, especially if those thoughts and those feelings are still there. That's why it's important to get therapy. And they have a couple different ways if you have PTSD to deal with that. One, they do prescribe medication, and two, mm, excuse me, they prescribe therapy as well. And a lot of the medications they prescribe are antidepressants because having PTSD, you also can have depression as well. Um, Two types of therapy that they recommend if you have PTSD is exposure therapy and cognitive reconstruction. So exposure therapy is basically putting you in the space of the traumatic event. And now can be not dangerous, but it can definitely trigger a lot of emotions. So they don't just throw you right back into the event that caused PTSD. They slowly build up it over time. Definitely find a therapist that you are comfortable with. You may have to try more than one in order to find one that you're comfortable with, and make sure you go at your own pace. This is not a rush. A lot of times we want to heal fast because we just want those thoughts and those feelings to go away, but it's definitely a journey. And you have to take your time with it. Like these things didn't happen overnight. The trauma, especially if you've been in trauma for a very long time, it's going to take time. It may take months. It may take years to heal and get. But with continued routines and activities and stuff, it can increase the likelihood that you will be back to some normalcy. Cognitive reconstructing is um, helping people make sense of those memories, right? A lot of times we don't want to deal with the trauma that we dealt with, so we'll block it out, right? And but in order to move forward, you have to deal with it. You have to um, tell yourself, yes, this happened, but it's not happening now. And it's hard, especially if you've been in that situation for a very long time, or if these things happen to you over time. It's hard to see anything outside of that, and so we tend to retract back to um, a place of safety. And so we definitely may avoid a lot of situations. We might isolate ourselves. If you see people, a lot of times they may stay in the house. They may just go out to get their basic day-to-day needs. And so it's important to pay attention to those around you. A lot of times people that are suffering will not let you know that they are suffering, but if you see behaviors that are not typical of that person, definitely reach out and ask them, what's going on, if they need someone to talk to, and maybe through conversation you can offer advice and encourage them to go definitely seek help that they need. Um, and a lot of times, once you do seek therapy, the therapist will sit there and talk to you about the trauma, but ultimately, it's up to you to decide what you're going to do with yourself and your trauma. Like, um, it's hard when you suffer, but you have to make the decision when you want to stop suffering. And it's not an easy process. You're going to have to kind of relive through the trauma that you experience, and that is not fun at all, right? You're going to go through the emotions and the whys and the hows and why, again, why did this have to happen to me? And we can't make sense of it when something bad has happened to us or we experience something bad. And it's a shame, though, that we have to sit there, especially if people have done stuff to us or we've been a part of something. We're constantly asking ourselves, like, why? And there is no answer. It's something that happened. The only thing that we can do is just figure out a plan to move forward so that we can enjoy the best life that we can. And for me, I suffered from PTSD a little bit. I was in two abusive relationships, and for a long time, I used to jump if someone got too close to me, or I would automatically block people from getting close because I felt like maybe someone else was out to get me. So it was hard for me to be in a relationship right after that because I had two back to back. And so over a period of 7 years, I suffered. I avoided talking about it, or when I did talk about it, like it brought up a lot of negative feelings. And so if I'm speaking about it, I tended to go back, and then someone can say something and it can be a trigger, and then it can be an all mess. That's why it's important to go seek help. Over the years, I have learned strategies to deal with that trauma. It never really goes away. You just learn how to deal with it and learn how to find something that works for you. Right? Trauma happens, but we don't have to continue to let it affect our lives. And there are also five types of PTSD. So, normal stress response, right? So, something happens, our normal response is we're going to be angry and sad and stuff. And then over time, we tend to get over it. But when it starts to go over past a couple of months or so, when it becomes a real disorder. They have acute stress disorder. This is PTSD coupled with panic attacks, mental confusion, disassociation, a severe insomnia, being suspicious, and being able to manage this basic day-to-day care. Like when you have acute stress disorder with PTSD, you may not bathe every day. You don't feel like getting up and cooking for yourself, or if you have children, you don't feel like taking care of them. Uncomplicated PTSD is where you're continuing to re-experience the trauma event. So you can have PTSD and you're still in that trauma. It's categorized as uncomplicated PTSD. They have something called comorbid PTSD, and that is it's a very common form of PTSD. And this is one that's associated with another mental illness, such as depression, alcohol and substance abuse, a panic disorder, or an anxiety disorder. So if you're suffering from PTSD and you have one of these, most likely you have comorbid PTSD. And then they have the last category, which is called complex PTSD. And this is one of the extreme versions of PTSD, and this is a prolonged suffering of PTSD. A lot of people that have suffered maybe childhood abuse and it continued for like 10, 15 years, they're going to be placed in this category. Also, in this category, you might have like borderline personality disorder, or avoidance disorder, or split personality disorder. And that's pretty much it. It's a lot of definitely mental disorders that we suffer. PTSD is one of them things. A lot of people are dealing with it and they suffer from silence. And especially those, again, that have been in the military, they come home and they're supposed to just jump back into normal life, and they never get help with the things that they have dealt with when they were in the military. So it's important, if you are a person that have been in the military or you're still in the military, that you continue to get support and help that you needed. I don't have any experiences, so I can't really share, but I know that they're dealing with a lot by, offering of themselves, and they've seen a lot. And so having all that trauma and then coming back to trying to live a normal life, it can be difficult. And don't be ashamed to go and seek help, especially if you know that you're suffering and having su- suicidal thoughts, or if you're having those aggressive thoughts, like maybe you're not the same, you feel like you're not the same person that you were before you left. Definitely go and seek help so that you can become the person close to the person that you used to be. I don't think, a lot of times people in the military may have seen a lot of things, and you may not ever be the person that you used to be, but at least you can try to live some normalcy. And those that suffer from sexual abuse or physical abuse or rape or any other traumatic event, never feel ashamed of what happened to you. It wasn't your fault, and you can have a normal life again. You have to choose yourself first, and part of doing that is seeking help. And you shouldn't have to feel ashamed. And I know we feel shamed, right? When I dealt with um, my abuse, I didn't tell anyone for a long time. I really felt ashamed that I allowed myself to be in that situation as long as I did, right? I used to beat myself up a lot of times, not like physically, but like mentally, beat myself up. Like, why did I allow myself to allow this person to do this to me? And so it was through like learning, it was through like self reflection, it was through actually accepting responsibility that I played, allowing myself to be in the trauma that I did for so long. And that's when I began to heal, once I accepted my part in it. And in everybody, PTSD doesn't look the same, right? I listed some symptoms, but some of those symptoms may not be listed, right? So that's why it's definitely important to go and get diagnosed and seek therapy so they can diagnose with you, especially if you're dealing with more than one mental illness. Having one is a lot of work in itself, but having multiple mental illnesses, it can create a lot of chaos in your head. Trust me, I know I suffer from anxiety and panic. I have OCD and I suffer from depression as well. Most days I'm having a great day, but every now and then, it may be a week or so that I'm just feeling down and I can't explain it. And that's why it's important to continue ongoing practices of healing, because this, depending on how long you've been carrying trauma, it doesn't just go away. And so you have to take care of yourself, and that's mentally, that's emotionally, that's physically, and that's spiritually, right? And so for me, the way that I've learned how to deal with um, my trauma and my experiences, I practice chakra healing. And what the chakras are, energy in our bodies. I did a brief series about that, and every day, I wake up and I exercise and I meditate and I practice gratitude and I try to eat the best that I can. And then I do a lot of self reflection every day and asking myself, why do I feel this way? And telling myself, we're not in that space anymore, and then talk about moving forward and finding joy in the little things that you have. Like, I find joy in waking up every day and knowing that my future is bright. I have a lot of things going on in my life right now that I'm very appreciative of that. And so, we have things that happen to us, but they don't have to become who we are. We get to choose who we want to be, beside all that trauma that happens. And that is through healing. And it's an everyday commitment to yourself. And trust me, it does get tiring. I get tired of waking up every day and exercising and eating right and meditating and talking to myself. At some point, you feel like you're losing your mind and you're going crazy. But for me, it's worth it. And the holistic approach works for me. If you need medication, never feel ashamed for getting put on medication if it gives you some peace of mind. Take that approach. If you are a person that likes to go to church and you want to heal that way, then so be it. You get to choose the way that you heal, and it's not right or wrong. It's your life for yourself, and you're the person that have to live with yourself. And so you want to create the best possible life for yourself. And the only way to do that is through healing. And it definitely is going to take some time, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. There is a brighter day ahead. Everything that has happened to you has happened to you. And you don't have to continue to let it happen to you. You don't have to suffer in silence. There are groups, there are people, that are willing to help you, but you have to um, open up and allow people to help you. I know a lot of times when you suffer from trauma, you don't trust anybody, and that is something big that I had to, and I continue to learn how to open up and trust people, because you always think that people are out to get you, and you think that people are just going to use you. But everyone is not like that, and so it's important to move forward and to heal from that. You have to be able to trust people again, and it's hard. And I want to thank y'all. If you have any questions about PTSD, you can definitely inbox me. Is a lot of research on there. They are continuing research on PTSD because, again, a lot of people do suffer from it, but everybody's symptoms are different. And so they're definitely trying to find new ways of how to get people back to some normalcy. If you're interested, again, shout out to my sponsor, Flawless Tires. You can find them at 1195 Chester Pike and Eddie Stone. Definitely hit them up and tell them that I sent you. Also, I have a website, www.becomeyourc.com, and I talk about a lot of different things about the mental, the emotional, the physical, and spiritual parts of ourselves so that we can heal and become more of ourselves. Also, follow me on Instagram, Become Your C. I share a lot of my poetry on there. Um, Follow me, Christina McIntyre, or excerpts from a Rare Diamond on Facebook. Make sure you download the Live 365 app to listen to me every week, Sundays at 12 p.m., Wednesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Search cmpradio.net. Also, my event, again, that's coming up on March the 27th. It's a Saturday. It's from 4 until 8. It's only $10. I put together this event to collect items for the homeless because I think that is important that we give back to our community. And the homeless population is definitely some a population that I connect with because I myself have experienced that when I was a child. Again, thank you each and every one of you for viewing. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to follow cmpradio.net here on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And then remember to fall in love with yourself so the world can fall in love with you. Until next time.